Hello there. So I'm going to talk today about the design process. Now, in an ideal world, I guess this is the sort of format that it would follow, where you understand, first of all, the design problem, then you come up with a design brief, you carry out some further analysis and research, and then you develop a specification. Now, it's probably not very often that you would follow that exact format, and really speaking, those arrows should have a two-pointed arrow where you can go back and forth between them. So I'm just going to take you through some illustrations that hopefully help you understand the design process and will allow you to follow. Okay, so first of all, hopefully you've identified a problem that needs solving. So in this case here, you can obviously see that there's two toddlers or young persons trying to access their toys at the top of the table. Now, there's multiple ways that you could solve that problem. One being, have a toolbox that's, or a toy box, sorry, that's lower down, possibly have some child-friendly sort of steps that could be folded out. But that would be up for you to fully understand the problem and then come up with some design solutions. So, as I said, first of all, understand what the actual problem is, and perhaps don't too quickly come up with a solution. Keep your options open at this point. Okay, so secondly then, write a brief, but don't be too specific. So in the case of the child trying to access the toys on the table, you would say, I'm going to design a product that aims to, perhaps it could be store toys at a level that is suitable for children. It could be that you identify the problem in a different way and say, right, I'm going to develop child-friendly steps that allow young children even, to access toys that are at a higher level. Obviously, there's some safety considerations that you need to consider there. You don't want, young children being able to move little steps around where they could access things that they shouldn't access. So again, that's about understanding the problem. And just from some discussions there, you might think, well, actually the better way to do it is to have toys stored at a level that is more suitable to them. Okay, so next up is to analyze the problem. This is where you're throwing yourself in to fully understand what the problem is. So what could your product do? How could the product be used? When could it be used and where could it be used? Who could use it? Don't limit yourself to a target audience if it doesn't need to be really specific. You could broaden it out. So if I give you two examples, something like a children's toy. Well, a children's toy is predominantly used by children of certain ages. If you consider something like, I don't know, a mobile phone would be used by a much bigger audience. Okay, so next up, this is one possible method that you could use where you draw a bubble chart to fully understand the what, where, when, why, and who, and expand out from it. So at this point, the level of detail that you consider is up to you, but obviously the more detail that you have there will help you understand that problem in greater detail. And obviously if you're approaching GCSE or high-end GCSE and A-level, the more detail that you include in there, the better. Okay, so then write a description of the problem that you would like to solve. So this falls under the specification. I'm going to go into a separate video on the specification because it's really important at GCSE and A level, because the specification is, I describe it as almost like a set of rules that you set yourself to follow. And that should be based on your detailed understanding of what your problem, your design problem or situation is. Okay, so after you've done your specification, you could then write a secondary specification where you think about some secondary functions that the product could have. So I'll just read out what it says here. Also write about the secondary functions such as storage, transport, cleaning, and maintenance. So if you consider, I don't know, something boring like a sponge that you would use to wash up, well, its primary function would be to wash items inside a sink. But think then, after you've used that sponge, in order for it to be hygienic, how does it dry out? Do you have a secondary storage item or some method of hanging that allows it to have the water escape from the sponge and therefore is more hygienic as a result? So that would fall under like a secondary specification or a secondary function. Okay, so there's a wide array of information that would help you solve the problem, and you can gather it from lots of different places. And actually, when this book was written, I don't think the internet was even invented. So there it says gather information from books, magazine, but obviously you can use the internet, you could use social media, you could use interviews that you've had with people that are your intended target audience as well. One useful way of finding out a little bit more information is, because you are in education, you can send out letters, and I'd encourage you to have them vetted by me first, but you can send letters to manufacturers of products, or perhaps more appropriate, it might be emails. You could use the contact us section on manufacturers' websites and just ask them for some information. All of the designers will have been in your situation at some point, having studied probably resistant materials or product design or graphics at GCSE. So hopefully they'd be willing to help and maybe offer some form of insight. Okay, you can obviously then carry out some experiments in order to find further information. So if I use the example of the young children with their toys, it might not be suitable in this current climate to take photos of children in their home. But what you could do, if you've got younger siblings, have got toy storage or whatever the problem might be, you could take some photos and really try and understand what their problem is. Simple experiments like, using some form of storage, making some prototype models, just to help you understand what the problem is. Put yourself in their situation. So that's a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of the design process and what you can do to understand your problem. But before you start generating ideas, and possibly after you've generated some ideas, it's quite useful just to go through this and make sure that you've got evidence of all of these points within your sketchbook and your design portfolio. It doesn't need to be necessarily in chronological order, where you go from step 1, 2, 3, 4. You might go to 1, 2, 3, and then back to 2, and so on. But just make sure that you're detailing that as you write. So that might be a little note down in the corner to say that you've added to this point as a result of my experimentation, or you can say that I've carried out this experiment as a result of what I've written in my design brief, and so on. So it's quite fluid, but make sure that you've got evidence of it all within inside your design portfolio.